Another piece that they are picking at, and we knew they would. I mean, it's they have their right to pick at it. It's they're trying to defend somebody and get them off of a murder charge. Is going after the eyewitness testimony of the surviving roommate who
Mhm.
has claimed that she cracked the door and saw a man walking out with covering on his face, but enough to tell that there were thick eyebrows there, and matching basically roughly what the description of Kohberger would be. They're now going back and saying, well, that testimony is not going to be accurate. It's inconsistent. She said different things, and she did, like the morning of, saying this is a nightmare. Sometimes I'm just paraphrasing here, but something to the effect of I don't know what's reality and what was a dream, basically because I'm in shock. It was trauma. Of course there would be. When you have that sort of thing going on, and I'm not discounting her testimony at all or what she is saying or what she believes happened, um, but I guess fairly, how accurate can that testimony be when you are in that sort of shock? Shock enough to not call the authorities until like around noon that day. First, you're calling all your friends to come over and see what's going on,
Mhm.
and then the police are called. That's another weird point, but let's start with the first point of that and how accurate the testimony would be.
So, given given what she saw, given the background, given all the information we have around her, I wouldn't necessarily be looking at her from testimony for eyewitness account and descriptions of Koberger. I would be looking at for what she couldn't verify. We can verify we have someone that walks and looks like a male. We have one person. We have potential time of day. We have eyebrows, but again, I would just manage your expectations of what you could reasonably get from someone that they're going to attack different angles of her and her eyewitness accounts, especially from time. Or I think there's one thing where I saw that she did say, or someone said that she was still, maybe inebriated, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I think because his face was covered because of the all these other factors, I think they're going to go for more verifying that it wasn't multiple people, verifying the time of day, verifying height, maybe verifying what he was wearing, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot there she can add without it being really refuted.
Hmm. That's true. The thing that strikes me about all of this is there's two things in this, but first I want to get to uh, the bizarre nature of what occurred that morning, where the police were not initially called. She called friends. Is that? I mean, can we just stack that up? And I'm not saying we can. I'm asking, can we stack that up to? She's really young, never
Yes.
been in a situation like that, just very inexperienced at life for the best part. And when you're shocked and you're in trauma and you don't have a lot of experience having to call 911 for anything, you're going to look for your friends and people that are going to comfort you, maybe even sometimes more than actually bringing in law enforcement. Again, not the right path to take, but again, young and inexperienced at life.
I 100% agree with that. I have two kids that are in their mid 20s right now, and they are doing, as I call, big shit stuff in life. My daughter's a labor and delivery nurse, my son's a Marine Corps jet pilot. And yet, there are things that they didn't experience growing up, like changing a flat tire, changing a light bulb, buying a light bulb. And there's certain things, life skills that you don't have until you do it for the first time. And how many of us as parents have trained our kids to call 911 if you see something like a murder or a car crash or something? The first thing, because this is a very social generation, especially if you're in a college situation, that you're trying to maintain your privacy and have your first disconnect from your parents. So the first question is that my daughter was like this. Anytime she had something that pop up when she's in college, last person she called was us. And we have great relationships with her, but she would always go to your friends first. And so that pattern of behavior does not strike me as any different. Now, granted, what we can do? We can actually easily see this, and they might do this in the courtroom with her. Is like what I would do is like, hey, so what did you do the morning of such and such when you woke up? All right, so tell me, what other times in your life did you face something you never faced before? And did you call your parents? Did you call 911 or did you call a friend?
Hmm.
So I think they'll be able to easily establish a pattern of behavior of this is how people problem solve.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know what to do, you're going to default to what you always have done, which is you call your friends. And so that doesn't strike me as odd.
And I will say this: if anybody in these current days has interactions with any young person, teenager on up into like mid 20s, one thing is for certain: they don't have the greatest problem solving skills. And
Yes. I didn't
it's
want to
like we
say
all
it.
did it. We were all young and dumb once. And I don't know if there's less problem solving skills today because we have other things that just kind of give us answers and we don't necessarily need to use our brain to put one and two together sometimes. That may be part of it. It's baffling, I think, to some of us who came from a world where that didn't exist, but it is what it is. Just talk to him for a little bit. You're going to hear a plethora of things you like nails on a chalkboard going, you thought what? You thought this was the appropriate response to that? And I'm not talking murder scenes, just anything in life. Very, very common. And I just thinking that might have been applied here, again, because of lack of experience.
Yeah, it's sad, it's disappointing, but it's not really shocking
No,
because it does fit a pattern. It's a generational pattern, and it's not right or wrong. It just
no,
is. And I think it gives us a great, as parents and people with working with other generations. I think it's important for us to realize, hey, if you don't teach, mentor, and guide,
hmm,
the first experience they have to facing challenging situations and problem solving, they're going to need some reps before that if you want them to do it in a healthy way that's going to be beneficial. So
sure.
but it's not shocking to me.
No, no. There's another thought I had on this, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are, and just kind of conjecture on this. Obviously, Kohberger is up for the death penalty. Uh, and once this does get to trial, I know they're going to try and use anything that they possibly can, if it does get to trial, because I think there's a possibility it may come to some sort of plea agreement to take death off the table. But if it does get to trial and death is still on the table, not a guarantee, you get found guilty, you're not guaranteed death. That I
Mhm.
don't know in Idaho if it's up to the court or if it's up to the jury to decide that. I'm not sure.
Right.
Ultimately, someone does make that decision. I think if you put the surviving roommate on the stand and you put her through hell and you cross her, which I'm sure they will, on all of this stuff and really break her down, which I'm guessing is probably what will happen and make her relive this shit, and he's eventually found guilty, I think you almost have a guaranteed death penalty. So I think the defense of Kohberger better tread lightly on the roommate because I don't know that she really gives anything that shows reasonable doubt. I don't know that she really gives anything that shows that it is him. I just think her testimony is mixed up in trauma, and that is what it is. But if you go after her and that jury sees the cruelty in making somebody relive something, and it turns out you're doing it, and the guy who did this crime is sitting in front of all of us and he's cool with it, kill him. I think you're going to get a very strong reaction from either the judge or the jury, whoever decides that, of that's the breaking factor. That's the point that made me say firing squad.
I don't think she's going to go at her like that because she's shown a lot of great prowess as a defense attorney so far, and if we're thinking about it, she's probably thinking about it as well. I think both sides here. I think the evidence is what the evidence is, and there's going to be, I think, more that's going to come out because, and actually we might get it because they're talking about maybe unsealing it right now
Yeah.
some more. But I think what both sides are going to really do here is you're going to have the prosecution going for the emotional response to the girls and the surviving roommate. And I think what Anne's going to do on defense is going to be going for the emotional connection to Kohberger.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to do that so far with the way she's dressing him up, the way she's putting an arm around him in the courtroom. I mean, so she's trying to paint him as a maybe a lost soul or a person who's been wrongly persecuted and accused, and he's just trying to make his way into the universe as someone who survived a drug addiction, who's a loving son, who the father is so proud of. So I think instead of going after the surviving roommate, most likely I think she's going to be playing to the jury emotionally for Kohberger, just like the prosecution is going to go for the victims.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the way they're going to be battling it out.
That's going to be a hard one to tread on, though. I mean,
It
that's
is.
where I say you better tread lightly if you're going there, because I don't think it necessarily even needs to be kind of what I described, the hardcore, we're going to go at you, almost like what we saw in the Black Swan trial, where that defense attorney just like broke her down on the stand. I don't know that we're going to see that, but in the trauma of this situation, I would almost say even bringing up the subject, I think could probably break somebody down. I don't know her at all. I have no idea what her demeanor is or how she would handle something like that. But I would guess a majority of people who have been through a trauma like that, and now you're front and center, you're the spotlight here, and somebody is challenging your account of that, even if done as lightly and with kid gloves as you possibly can, it wouldn't take much to have her really tear you down with the emotions that she's likely going to show on that stand and really hurt your case.
So here's some conjecture I think we might see. So the surviving roommate is a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for her, and there's no doubt, and that's why I think what we're talking about going after her will not serve any defense well on this. I would think, like I think a good strategy, if they do wind up having her on the stand, which they probably will. One, like you said, she cannot accurately describe Kohberger anyway, so I don't think she's really going to add much in that area that defense would have to go after. If you're going for trying to be the person that people like, which is what she's trying to do with Kohberger in this room, I would, as if I was defense, if I was her, I would treat her with really a lot of kindness and gentleness on the stand.
We'll see if that happens. And I
Yeah.
hope they go down that road,
I
because
hope so too.
you don't want to see her be re traumatized by all this
I
for
agree.
trying to benefit Kohberger. Unless he's innocent, then you know what? You got to do what you got to do. But yeah, the dynamics, no matter how it's played out, that could go bad really, really quick. I'm interested to see what's going to be unsealed here, like you had just mentioned. The judge has said that the closed testimony that took place the other week will be released once it has been redacted as the judge sees appropriate. They have 14 days to do that, and by the time this is airing, we're getting close to that date. So we'll likely see that probably in the next month. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what new pieces to this case come to light.
I have some I have some hope. I have a lot of hope still on this one, and here's why. I've liked how that Moscow Police Department has handled themselves during the investigation. They had a young guy, from what I understand, a corporal that was running this investigation. I liked his professionalism that I saw from the very get-go. He did a good job of trying to coordinate multiple jurisdictions and multiple resources, and so I really hope the way the prosecution as well as the investigators handled this, knowing what a big case this was, that they dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and made this as airtight as possible because they knew they're going to be defending against someone like Anne.